had some canned questions in regards to discovery.
I don't see we implemented EDS about a year or so ago, I guess almost 2 years maybe. But with some of the updates to Discovery, I'm a little bit like,
Yeah.
maybe.
Wasn't Georgetown was looking into EDS? I don't know if,
They're implementing right now.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a meeting with Michelle tomorrow to kind of help her with some of that. So
I know, yeah, Andy has mentioned that a time or two, that that was a project they were working on. So
when we implemented it, it wasn't my choice.
Gotcha.
I liked Discovery, but it wasn't. I get that it wasn't super user friendly, so I get why. But
yeah, among my chief problems with it are the known item, which I've complained to enough OCLC people about that, the known item search, and also the fact that you really are getting it is a discovery system. It's not an OPAC, and
yes,
so that I always bring that up in meetings, uh, but it's true. Um, it will find your electronic items really well. But if there's a copy of something on the shelf that you know is on the shelf, and I understand from yesterday's presentation that's something that they're working on. So I think they've heard the feedback. Not to speak
Hi
about
there, I
you
can
and
hear
your team
you.
in the third person, Jay, but just talking about the known item issues with discovery and the challenges that presents. So I know that fixes for that and are in the works.
Yeah, it'd be great to see if those specific issues you see are solved now in the preview UI in the new one. So I'd love to hear that.
Is there a place we can go to test that out?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you go to your Discovery landing page, on the URL, just replace the word discovery with V2. So like version 2, V2.
Okay. It's good to know.
Do we replace?
And it will, you might want to open it in an incognito or a private window, because it will try to keep you in that experience. You can just close your browser, like exit the browser and restart it, and it'll go back to the current one. But that can be disruptive if you have 1,000 tabs like I do during the day.
yeah, I was just saying, Jay, that we implemented EDS against my will. And now that some of the things that we were frustrated with about WorldShare are changing, I'm like, because the person who made me do it is no longer at my institution.
That's good news. Yeah. Yeah, so if you have a chance, there's now some recordings and such available on the Community Center under a new tab called Modernization. So there's a lot of resources there for I'd especially take a look at the planned features list, because that will have like everything that's there today, which is not everything. Like there's still a lot to come by June. And then it also it signals what's been redesigned. So you can take a look at like new experiences and then things that are completely new, to see if some of those issues you were speaking to should be improved or not.
Great.
And I did still want to do introductions, because I didn't get to actually hear you when we were going through them. If we could do that real quick. Jill, would you mind giving it another shot?
Sure. I'm Jill Sherman. I'm the Technical Services Librarian at Louisville Presbyterian Seminary, and I've been doing most of the metadata sessions, but I haven't done discovery yet. So I thought I'd come in here. What's going on?
Great. Okay, cool. Thank you. And then Jason.
Jason Cooper, Head of Technical Services at Transylvania University in Lexington. And I oversee cataloging, acquisitions, all of those back-end functions, and also the technical setup for systems like discovery and circulation and those things as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And John?
John Boyd, I'm from Bellarmine University in Louisville. I do reference and interlibrary loan. And I didn't get to any of the discovery stuff earlier, so I thought I would check it out this time.
Great. Cool. Thank you all for joining. And Katie. Oh, say hi, Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Means, and I'm a product manager for WorldCat Discovery as well. And I've been with OCLC, I think a little over 9 months at this point, so relatively new to the company.
Thanks, Katie. Brandy, do you want, I know you, but which institution are you with?
Yeah, so I'm a happy accident here because I'm just the mod. But I'm kind of glad because it's a little bit lonely here in the main room by myself. So I'm at Spalding University Library in Louisville, and I'm a little bit of a one-woman show when it comes to WMS. I'm the only person in my institution who works with it. So I do all of the modules and all of the things.
All of the things.
Wow.
All of the things.
Yeah, that must be exciting.
That's a word to describe it.
Well, I'm glad that you're here, even if it's a happy accident. And so I'm curious. I'm happy to talk in any direction you guys want to go in. But if you have specific questions, I was also thinking yesterday we got into a little bit of like what's different, what's changed significantly, what are you having to do more of, or what types of questions do you get now that were not as prominent prior to the pandemic? So we talked a little bit around that yesterday, and that kind of was centered around like what sort of hold policies do you have and how have those changed? The communication with users is more important than ever, and access to materials seamlessly, through electronic materials and through any sort of other fulfillment offerings that you might be thinking about. So that if there's anything there you wanted to speak to, or we can go any other direction.
We're definitely seeing an uptick in the requests for streaming video and other streaming options. And we're a small shop to begin with in terms of what we are cataloging. Most of the cataloging that I do obviously is copy cataloging. But we're seeing more requests now because Transy is a very much traditional delivery of material, and the whole online thing is not something we had done before now. So this has been a big cultural shift for the institution, but we are getting more requests now for streaming video, and we added a couple of vendors to the lineup to support expanded ebook offerings and streaming video offerings.
For the streaming video offerings, are those materials that you're able to surface through Discovery?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this system does an excellent job of cataloging electronic resources, and I don't think that there really have been significant issues with the findability or the searchability. I do have to sometimes wait to actually get an item in the system because of a billing issue. Everything starts in the acquisitions module as we're receiving items, but that's not an OCLC thing. That's vendors being slow, probably because people are working from home, just like we are largely working from home issue. So, the important thing is that I'm able to send, as soon as it's available, I'm able to send a stable URL to the professor who needs it for the class. Obviously, I would prefer to direct them to the discovery system. And that's what I do when, in the majority of cases and when I can. So
do you communicate and work on getting resources for classes often? Is that a big part of what you do?
So I do have an acquisitions person, thankfully. And she doubles as the person who pays the bills, and we don't have a department secretary, so she handles a lot of those clerical and bill paying functions, and management of budget lines and all of that for us. But we have a shared model of collection development at Transy, so the faculty do serve as de facto bibliographers, for their areas, and then we do hold off a certain chunk of the materials budget for like library general purchases. So all of us do serve in a collection development function. But we get requests from we have 1 or 2 film study type classes, and then we're also getting just more requests generally for other disciplines because obviously renting the DVD from the library and showing it to the class is not an option in this environment. So I'm seeing more requests from not only from classes but also from student groups who want streaming video options. So we added Swank Digital Campus to the mix as a vendor because they have more of the feature films, and we had already been using Canopy for a couple of years. We don't have a ton of these licenses, and we probably won't for the foreseeable future. I mean, they're not cheap, but yeah, I think the system manages them well, and I think Discovery allows you to find them pretty well.
Cool, thank you. I was thinking about your like the electronic resources demand is increasing. Where are you trying? So like Discovery is one place to point users to get those. Are there other places where you're trying to get that content in front of users through classes?
We're kind of in a transition point for like LMS systems. And so that's been a discussion on the campus. I'm not involved in most of those because they're more directly related to the teaching and learning, the instruction mission of the school. But we're very much trying to get the faculty to commit to one LMS where students will go. In theory, all of these streaming videos, will have a stable link that you could embed in a place like that to view. My default is to send the Discovery link to professors, but where that's not available, or sometimes it's just not available yet. We have one vendor in particular, I won't mention who it is, that it's a number of weeks will go by sometimes before we actually get an invoice, which is kind of weird, because my acquisitions person's like,
take our
they
money.
haven't billed me. Like, let me give you money, But again, I think, because people are working at home and, I've talked to some of these vendors on the phone and they're like, I'm managing my kids' NTI and I'm a short order cook and I'm doing all this other stuff while I'm trying to do my job. So it's, I suspect that's what's happening. So in those cases, I will send the person directly to the platform with all of our ebooks and streaming video. Pretty much once we place the order and they turn the title on in their system, it becomes available. So if, in those cases where we haven't gotten billed yet and I haven't been able to do my piece in WorldShare, I'll just go ahead and send them to the platform directly. So,
okay.
And that's worked okay.
You mentioned you're trying to get institutions onto one LMS. Do you have, are there multiple LMSs being used across institutions?
We went to Canvas. I think we had been on Moodle. And so we made that transition. We're a Google school. So we make liberal, and I'm sure that the professors make liberal use of the whole Google suite of apps. And I think actually at this point, we've only got maybe 1 or 2 holdouts for getting their stuff on one platform.
Okay. Are students able to access your electronic resources directly from the LMS?
Frankly, I don't know that I have a lot of insight as to how the professors are using that. we do try to point out to them that, the URL embeds are there. We've had, for example, access to the Films on Demand academic package for a long time. And that's one of the several databases where we have some streaming video where you can find the stable link either for the whole, film or for a clip of the film. You could drop it into an LMS readily. So that capability exists. And I know that we try to play that up, but I can't say to the extent that's being used.
Okay. Do any of your institutions use like a reserves process, like for digital materials?
We're starting to. It's a beginning process that we're hoping to have in place, and we'll see how it goes in January.
Okay. So what's that going to look like? I know if it's.
I'm just building the courses in the course reserve module, where before we put them in a LibGuide and divided them up in courses that way. But we thought we would try this and see how it went. But we've been very traditionally print-based and before this, so we're having to kind of catch up.
Okay, so it sounds like you and Jason are together and on that more shift to digital.
Oh yeah.
We've had traditional print reserves. I have a colleague on the public services side who largely manages that for us, thankfully. But she's been active in the course reserves area, building those. So we've obviously had to change things up for this past year because a lot of those options just aren't available to us now.
Right. But so it sounds like the digital materials that you are getting, the newly acquired stuff, that's all present in Discovery, so it can be used in course reserves if that's what you need. Or is there a gap between those?
I don't know if we're linking it into the course reserves or not, to be honest. I don't know that we are. I don't know that we're using course reserves in that way.
For digital items.
Right.
So when you are thinking about setting up the courses, are you working closely with the faculty, and how does that process work? I'm curious. We
get a list of courses and required textbooks and recommended readings. So we try to we can't purchase everything through EBSCO ebooks, but whatever we already have a subscription to, then I just link the MARC record or what in the catalog, and I put that in as if it was a print book, and it seems to work okay. So we have somebody in the faculty office who helps us get our titles. We try to keep a few weeks ahead, but a lot of times we get a lot of last minute additions.
I'm sure, yeah.
But like scanned readings or and that kind of thing, we're not putting in right now. We're just uploading them somewhere else and those links can be accessed.
So you're uploading them to
not a library. They may be going to somewhere else to get all these readings anyway, but we want the library to reflect as closely as possible.
So you guys are uploading them to like a repository and then sending the faculty a link or something?
It's not, it's an educational, the name is escaping me, we call it CAMS, but it's like Blackboard.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where the readings are being uploaded to and scans and things like that. But actually in WMS, we're only putting in, well, we don't want to put in the print books because we're closed right now and they can't come and get the books anyway. I thought that would be confusing. So we're just doing ebooks right now. And then if they can come in and they use the books, because we're just starting to open just a little bit, then it's like, well, do we quarantine these reserve books? How, then they'll be out of commission for a while, and there's all kinds of questions involved with that.
My partner was returning a library book the other week, and I was like, they're gonna make you quarantine it, and he thought I was kidding before, but then he saw that it was going to get quarantined and to include that in your time before it would get checked in.
Right, I think it's 4 days. Isn't that the recommended time to quarantine books?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah.
We're quarantining for a week right now. I don't know that that's necessary, but that's what we're doing.
Right.
We're not with course reserves. Nobody's using them anyway, but we just kind of disinfect. But you know, this is a little bit of a dovetail, but I wish that, because I think from what I understand, we've learned that that's really not how it transmits anyway, right? Like, so it's like, why do we still have to keep doing this? It's not doing anything. It's performative.
That's what a lot of faculty are saying too, and there's a point there.
So we do a 72-hour quarantine.
How would you disinfect a paperback book?
We just wipe down the outside. Even a paperback, we still kind of, we use like a Clorox wipe, basically.
Okay.
Dunk it in water.
I know early on I attended some sessions where I was like,
put it in the oven for half.
yeah.
I kid you not. I had like an 8 to 10 email chain with a faculty member who wanted to find out how he could get around our quarantine procedures, and I kept sending him notes saying, well, they're quarantine procedures because it's, a pandemic, and he kept saying, well, why does that apply to his items as opposed to all items? And I just, you wouldn't believe how many emails it would take to say we're not changing a policy because we don't want to die touching your DVDs, dude.
So Cirque, those of you coming back, we ended up having to move the Discovery breakout to the main room.
Jumping in and being, I'm so sorry then.
No, you're fine.
Oh.
Just, I wanted you to know the context that you're coming into.
I'll just come in and talk about whatever. It's no big deal.
I'm relieved that you just got here, because I was like, were you guys here the whole time and I didn't notice?
No.
Okay.
We're actually just talking about course reserves and things that dovetail with Cirque. So I think that's really useful. I have been actually wanting to learn more about some of the day-to-day management of Cirque, because it's not, I help with setting up the policy stuff and, on the config side of things, but not, I'm not the day-to-day Cirque manager. So.
Well, I'll say this, Jason. Generally, how I run my circulation department is I come in, I have a big Wheel of Fortune wheel, and I spin it each day, and whatever it says is how I decide to manage. And it has angry, sad, confused. Today is obviously a confused day because I have no idea what's happening. That's generally how I do it, Jason.
Do you have a specific technique that you've had to change your wheel for the pandemic?
Yeah, I got rid of all of the happy spaces on the wheel and just switched them all to sad. I feel like I came in here and totally ruined the mood. My bad, guys.
No, not at all. We were kind of talking to you about changing delivery models, and if there are ways that you've had to change how you provide access to materials because of this. So one of the things that we already discussed was just Jill and Jason were talking about, they have primarily had physical fulfillment and have really had to shift to digital first. And then we were also talking about items that are used for classes and how we can get those in front of users. So I'm curious if there's anything else in that kind of area where, if anyone else is interested in thinking about that, sharing your thoughts, we'd love to hear it.
So one issue that EKU had with sort of that is we do have course reserve DVDs that a lot of the classes still required students to use. And so the issue was we only had like maybe 2 or 3 copies of these DVDs, which before a patron would check it out for 4 hours, bring it back, turnaround would be like immediate. Now, however, it's they check it out, they have it for like 2 days, comes back, has to sit in quarantine for so long, then it goes on to the next person. So we were running into that issue of there's way more students in the class than what we can really connect to. So unfortunately, we had to start turning them to online like streaming and renting services and being like, this is, if you don't want to wait, like this is the only other option, because we just didn't have any more copies and we couldn't get around quarantining it. I mean, we don't know what that person has had to then be able to give it to you.
So why is a turn to like a streaming service unfortunate? Is it does the patron have to pay for that, or what's the downside?
The patron had to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
I think it was a $4.99 rental fee from one of the sites that we found, because we just didn't have any more.
Gotcha.
And no one wants to take the risk of making your own copy and putting it up someplace, because yeah,
right.
The publishing industry is getting serious about enforcement now that it's been almost a year. Yep.
Yeah, we ended up increasing our Canopy budget by like 400% or something like that to keep up, and even that wasn't enough money. Yeah.
I was going to ask if either Jason mentioned earlier Canopy, and then also Swink Digital as another option. I was curious if those are meeting a gap there.
Canopy ended up meeting a gap to a certain degree, but you know, and this is one of those weird things where I don't exactly know how it ended up on my plate, but suddenly I find that I'm the streaming guru, which I never volunteered for. And yet here I am. So it's become my job that anytime a faculty member on campus decides they want to use a film, I have to track down how the heck to find it for them, which often means I'm telling them Netflix is your only option, or Hulu's your only option, or Canopy's your only option. But I've categorically refused to start yet another streaming service that's not Canopy. So if it's not on Canopy, we've just told the faculty members they've got to start trying to adjust as well. And that's been kind of the big thing. And you know, that thing I'd kind of jump in here talking about the professor who didn't want to adjust his DVDs. I actually initially told him you should start with Canopy. You can't DVD everything because your students aren't going to come to campus for it. And this is the downside of things, is some of the faculty members are having a hard time adjusting themselves to the new reality they're working in. And what that means is, you know, you can only push so much off on the library staff. I can't like shake a magic wand and have streaming service rights for you know, a 12,000 DVD collection. And
right.
So Canopy is covered like 1/100th of the actual DVD collection that we have, because they're so damn expensive. I mean, it's $150 for a 1-year subscription. It's $300 for a 3-year subscription. And just getting one of those, you know, would wipe out a DVD budget that we would be able to purchase 10, 15 DVDs from. So all this money has to come from somewhere. And right now U of L has been very nice that they've said any money that the library spends on converting a class to an online style class, they'll reimburse us for. But we have also heard the caveat, there's a certain secret number that runs up to. So I don't know where that number is. And again, we go back to my Wheel of Fortune wheel. I don't really understand some of these things after I dealt with them.
That $150 for 1 year is for one title?
You can either pay the full subscription cost of Canopy and make it not a la carte. You can make it on demand, or we did what we did, which was buy them based on the individual title. And given that none of us obviously saw this pandemic coming, we never really anticipated having to buy so many individual titles. So I think one of the things we'll be doing come January or July, whenever their year ends, is figuring out whether we need to actually purchase the permanent. You know, anybody can watch as many things as they want. And we've back checked, obviously, all of the things we've purchased. I think we've purchased about 40, 50 Canopy titles thus far. and we're seeing some of them where we're spending $300 to get 2 or 3 views out of it, and that's just, you know, it'll make you puke, you know, saying, you know, what could have been purchased with that, as opposed to, you know, one student watched the film when it was assigned to, you know, 150 of them. And, you know, I know my students, if I assign them a movie, they're sure as hell not going to watch it if they don't have to. So we're spending a lot of money to keep up with what might not be a huge demand.
Ask, are there services that have like that? So the license that you're buying, is that for unlimited access? Is there are there like course specific licenses?
So Canopy offers basically 2 big options. There's a third smaller one, but the 2 big options are you either buy individual titles as you go, or you pay for essentially anybody can watch as much as they want. And as you might expect, anybody who wants to watch as much as they want is crazy expensive. And, you know, my initial budget was you can have $5 to explore this map, which obviously doesn't get you very far. But the other option, the third option that we absolutely couldn't do was, as long as if you hit a certain viewer count, it's automatically bought. And we, after digging around Canopy's, the fine print and Canopy's information, we found out that what they consider a view is 30 seconds of viewing, not 30 minutes. So if a student watched 10 different movies for 30 seconds, we'd be on the hook for $3,000. And I don't have $3,000 sitting around. So those were the options. And so we ended up going with the one that gave Matt the most amount of work, which was checking them individually. That's generally what Extrem's policy is, just give Matt more work. I'm not bitter on a Friday, guys. I'm so sorry.
I completely relate to what Matt is saying. And I have also become the go-to person for, is that license available? When we did add Swank to the mix because they have more of the feature films. So most of what we still need are like the documentary type things. But for those feature films, we did add Swank as an option, but we simply can't afford to do anything other than the a la carte type option. And, the other options just are financially out of reach for us, and it is more work. I think I mentioned to someone yesterday, setting reminders for yourself to take those licenses out of the catalog is something that you have to be on top of as well. Someone mentioned, well, License Manager can be your friend. So we don't have License Manager at the moment, but that may be something worth looking into if this, well, God forbid, continues.
It's funny you mentioned that, Jason. We literally had a meeting like 2 days ago about how the heck to back count these things, because we realized 6 months into it that if you don't put down the dates that you purchased the licenses, you won't notice when they expire. And we have a big public page now that says all of our wonderful titles so that people can see them. But it occurred to us almost immediately, several of them were 1-year subscriptions and several of them were 3-year subscriptions, and with no indication as to which is which, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants when somebody logs in as to when it was actually purchased. And as you said, all of this comes back to a lot more minutia work than we necessarily bargained for at the start of the semester. And it's, as a AUS department, we also have to spend a lot of times talking to tech services about it, because, they do the purchasing, they control the money. I just, hit a big old button that says approve on my desk every time I have to deal with one of them.
Yeah. We're using, like a Google spreadsheet to keep track of the licenses that we do have, and just basically striking out as they expire. And we're not, thankfully, we're not dealing with hundreds of titles here for any of the vendors. We do have considerably more ebooks and things like that, but when it comes to streaming video, for now, we're talking dozens of titles, not hundreds. So it is manageable.
Yeah, we switched to the. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is more work to do it the way we're doing it.
Yeah, we just started a Google spreadsheet. Previously, I was just writing it on my office walls in blood. That felt like the easiest way to keep track of things, honestly.
It looks like folks are starting to come back from breakouts. I'm going to go ahead and close all the rooms, actually.
Thanks for the discussion. That was really interesting.
Yeah.